Hey, what's going on? It's the Brazil Living channel. I am Derek, also known as the Big D. Check out my Big D channel for those of you going through relationship issues and things like that. Here on YouTube, I got a channel called the Big D. So I don't know, I'll go with the Big D here too as well. So it's the same thing. But this is the Brazil Living channel. And today I thought that we'd talk about a subject that's going to be something that's important for all of the individuals who are wanting to be expats and live overseas in another country. And the subject we're going to talk about today is maintaining credit. So this is something that you might not think about when you first start your journey, but it's something that's going to be real important to you because financially you got to keep certain things in order. So I'm gonna give you, I got some notes here on my phone or whatever, make sure just that I hit all the points and all that stuff. So if I'm looking at that, then that's what I'm trying to do, just trying to, make sure I hit all the points. But I'll talk a little bit about my credit story. I talk about this on one of my other channels or whatever, but I didn't always have the greatest financial situation. So I suffered with my credit from the time I was 18 until, now. So, my credit always kind of suffered, and it's like I would clean it up and I would kind of get it to a place where it was workable or whatever. And I got a number or whatever, trying to buy a house or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And then something will happen, and then you kind of right back in the cycle again. So I learned a lot about cleaning up credit and how to handle those things or whatever. And one of the things that's important about credit is that after 7 years, if you have anything on your credit, everything's going to drop off. So knowing that information, when I was coming here, making my plans to come here to move to Brazil, then I decided to take advantage of that too. I didn't have a lot on my credit at all to begin with, but I stopped doing anything with my credit in 2013. I just kind of got fed up with the credit system in the US, and I was like, I don't really want anything to do with it. The only thing I really had bought was a car because I needed that for my job or whatever, but that's the only thing I really had credit-wise. But then I got rid of my car, after coming to Brazil and being here for 2-3 month stints here. In Brazil, I knew that I was coming this way and I wanted to unwind from any responsibilities that I had in the States and just be kind of free and clear so that I could actually move here to Brazil. So by the time I moved in 2018, I really only had one thing on my credit, and the only thing I did for credit was, get an internet account. I was living in New York at my sister's place or whatever. They didn't have internet over there, so I got the internet account there at the house just so I could work at the house and be in communication and all that stuff. And so that's the only thing that I had. And now what I did was I left it on when I left the house and moved to Brazil because I thought she was going to pay it, and she didn't apparently. So that ended up on my credit, right? So, but it was the only thing that was on my credit. I think it was 100 and I want to say 120, 130 bucks or something ended up sitting on my credit or whatever. And I just kind of left it there or whatever. I'm here in Brazil or whatever. I don't need internet in New York State right now. So I was like, okay, whatever. I didn't anticipate that. But other than that, I had zero on my credit. Like I said, I hadn't done anything on my credit, hadn't pulled any inquiries, hadn't applied for any cards, and do nothing. Didn't have a credit card. Nothing since 2013. So I basically almost had a clean slate when I got here. And I was just like, anything that I had on there, whatever, was gonna fall off. And so I've been here, six and a half years now. And so my credit, I realized maybe like a year, it's probably a little more over a year, maybe a year and 4 or 5 months ago, that, oh wow, I don't have a credit score at all. Now I did keep some applications on my phone. I kept like a Nerd Wallet because that one would allow me to actually see my credit score and see my credit report, right? So their Vantage score or whatever, it's not like your FICO score or whatever, but at least it was some access to be able to see my credit score. If you're in the US, you can pull your credit reports and get a free credit report and all that stuff. I just always had trouble verifying through like the TransUnion and all that kind of stuff on their websites. I had trouble verifying, so I just never used them. I would use my Nerd Wallet just so I can keep an eye on it, make sure that nobody's using my name and my social security for anything, because when I was in the States in I think 2015, I ended up losing my wallet. I think it was stolen at Starbucks. And so I know my identity was out there because I know they were buying stuff or returning stuff to Walmart and stuff. using my name, because I went to return something one time and they're like, oh, you got all these returns or whatever. You can't return anything anymore because you got so many returns. And I realized they were using my ID, which was set to expire anyway, so they weren't going to be able to use it much longer. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that nobody was using my credit. So that's something that you want to, think about when you move overseas, is that protecting your credit. How to, go in and lock your credit down. If you know you're not going to be applying for anything, you can go in and you can lock your credit down with the bureaus so that nobody can actually apply for anything or do anything in your name. I think that's a smart move. So yeah, I think that's probably the best practice for you if you're concerned about identity theft and all of that stuff. Just try to keep that, from happening, because the last thing you want to do is try to fight identity theft and you're not even in the country, right? So I got to the point where basically I had no credit score. Even the $120 or $130 or whatever for the internet company thing had fallen off my report. I had nothing on my report. So I realized last year, I was like, oh, you know what? Mid last year, I was like, oh, I'm probably at some point going to go back to the United States. When I get back there, I'm not going to have any credit history. I'm not going to have anything for like years. So I probably ought to start reestablishing my credit and doing some things or whatever for my credit, and maybe get a credit card or something. Maybe that's the easiest way. So I kind of stumbled into this, and this is why I'm kind of doing this this video for you. Because if you end up in that kind of situation, it ain't going to be just smooth sailing to do this. There's a lot of factors at play. So I went to a couple of different sites or whatever like that, and I was like, okay, if I have zero credit score and zero credit history, what can I get? Right? Like, what kind of credit card can I get or whatever? So I applied for a couple of things or whatever. I think I applied for 2 or 3 cards or whatever. One of them rejected me right away. I think that was Chase or somebody rejected me right away. I was able to get a Capital One secured card, secure platinum card or whatever like that. And it was like, you send them $100, that my deposit was like $99 or whatever. You send them like $99 and they give you a $200 credit limit. And I was like, okay, cool, because I'll send them the $99. When I close the account or whatever, I'll get the $200 back or the $100 back or whatever that I deposited with them. And I'll just make the payments on that. I already have subscriptions and things for the studio here. Like my Pro Tools software and my Plugin Alliance bundle and all that kind of stuff. I'm paying these subscriptions anyway every month. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll just put all of my subscriptions on my Capital One card. Ends up being like, that's probably like $100 a month, maybe 120. I pared back some of them or whatever, so I'm sitting at about $120 a month with that. So it fits on the $200 card or whatever like that. And then I'm paying that anyway, just out of my cash. So I might as well just have the credit card pay, and then I pay the credit card bill. So that's, I figured like I'm paying this money out already anyway, so I might as well just do that. So that's what I was doing, right? I started that, but I ran into some issues with Capital One. We're going to talk about that a little bit. It's fine, whatever. I still have the account or whatever. I still have that account. It's working perfectly fine for me. However, there's some things that you are going to want to know. The first thing I ran into with Capital One is I had an account with them, or I had, I think, a couple cards with them years and years and years ago. And that account was tied to an old phone number in the United States. So I don't have that phone anymore, or access to that phone number. So I can't access their mobile application. So, I've got I had an issue because when I went to go look at the mobile application just to see the back end and all that stuff and payments and all that kind of stuff, I couldn't access it because I'm tied to an old phone number. And then when I tried to change the phone number through the system, it wouldn't let me change it to my Brazil number, and I didn't have a US number at that time. So that's something that's really important for you. You're going to need to have a US number to access your bank accounts and all of that stuff. You're going to need to have some type of number in the US. It needs to be in your name, and it needs to be an address that's attached to you. Because even Capital One system, even though you can change the number, you can't change it if it's not tied to your name, and it's not tied to that account is not tied to an address that you own, right? So that became an issue too, because I can't use like a VoIP number. I can't use like a Google Voice number or something like that. I need a real number. So how I got around that is to go get, I went on Amazon and I got a Boost Mobile card because I had Boost Mobile service there in the States at one time or whatever. So I remember that. And I was like, okay, they've got an eSIM. So I bought on Amazon the card and they sent me an email. And so the same night I ended up being able to enter the eSIM into my iPhone, which is the phone I'm recording on. So I have the eSIM on there, the numbers there, whatever. I can get the numbers, the code numbers sent from banks and things like that to my phone to verify, phone verification. So that became an issue for me. So I just wanted to put that out there so you recognize how important it is to have a US number that's from an actual carrier. I don't know who the carriers are now, AT&T or Sprint and T-Mobile and all those people, Verizon or whatever. You probably want to keep your number. Find a way to keep your number or find a way to set up a number up in the States before you go overseas, and dual chip that or eSIM that or something in your phone so that you have it, because without that you're going to be locked out of a lot of things banking wise. And if you have any type of trouble or you have any type of problem with your bank account, they're going to want to send you a code to that bank account, and you're not going to have access to it, or you're not going to be able to get the code, and they're not going to talk to you. So this is something that we want to be sure and be mindful of, is keeping a number in the States. Another thing when it comes to access is VPN access. So there are sites and there are card companies and things like that that will not allow you to enter their sites without being in the United States. So you might want to have some type of VPN access too. I have Windscribe. I've had Windscribe for a lot of years. You can use it on your cell phone and you can use it on your computer. There's a free version of it. You get like 10 gigabytes or 10 megabytes or something like that. 10 gigabytes, I think it is, per month or something for the free version. And so I don't use it a lot. If I need to go onto a site or whatever, I'll turn it on or whatever and go onto a site that's necessary to be accessed, right? But typically I don't need it, but if I do, I have it. I also have Proton VPN. And Proton VPN seems like that's good too. I have that on my cell phone. That one also allows you to get IP numbers in the United States. That's going to be helpful to you as well. And they have a free tier as well. And it's pretty good service. So I think that's important to remember, that you might need a VPN for getting verification codes and things like that, for having access to the actual websites. If you're applying for a card or something while you're here, you probably are going to need that as well. It might be better to apply behind a VPN, because your IP address on the application is going to tell the finance company or the bank or whoever you're applying with that you're not in the United States. And then they're going to want an extra level of verification. I've run into that where they want some type of passport verification or driver's license or something too. So there's an extra level there. So I'd be aware of that as well. Now, you can use your cards here in Brazil for things like Uber and stuff like that, or in the grocery store. I tap to pay with this phone all the time. So you can use your cards here. So one thing that you might want to consider is having cards without any foreign transaction fee. So some cards will charge you so much for a percentage for every time you swipe or you use it in a foreign country. They're going to charge you for that transaction fee. Now, I have a Wise account, and my Wise account does not charge me that. So I'll put a link in the description for that. I think a Wise account is good. It's been great to me. Probably the last, that's pretty much what I've used since I've been here. Before I got the Capital One card, I was using my Wise, right? And there's no foreign transaction fee, but there is that conversion fee if you don't know what to do. So if you go to an ATM or you go to the store, to a grocery store here, after you swipe or whatever, after you tap to pay, there's going to be a screen that's going to come up, and it's going to say tap like red, for Brazilian reals, or tap, the green button for dollars. And you might be tempted to hit the green for dollars and not hit the red, but hit the red. Because if you hit the red, it's going to pay in the local currency, and then you're not going to get that conversion rate. If you hit the green, it's going to add to your expense, right? So one time I bought a linen set, and it was 89 reais or something, and I didn't remember that I was supposed to hit the button. So I think the girl at the cash register saw that, I have to make a selection, and she just hits green. And then as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, she got me. So so it ended up costing me like 99 reais instead of 89 reais. It was like, that's what, less than $2. It's like $2 or less, but still, it's still, some money that I paid that I didn't have to pay. And if you do that all the time, it's going to add up, right? If you do that 10 times in a week, you're talking about $20 that you just gave away for nothing, at that small level. I had another incident at the ATM. I didn't think that I could decline it because I was thinking they're going to decline my transaction. I was pulling money out to pay the rent in the studio and pay the electric in the studio. It was like maybe 2,400 reais or whatever. I pulled the 2,400 reais, and I ended up losing like close to 400 reais because I accepted that US conversion. So you can also decline that as well. Go ahead and decline it. It's not going to decline your transaction. Go ahead and decline it and say, no, I want the Brazilian rate or whatever. Hit decline. You probably have to hit it twice. Normally in the grocery store and at the ATM, you have to hit it once. It's going to ask again. You hit it again to decline again, and everything's going to be fine. But I don't want you to get caught in that and think that you don't have a choice, because that's where you're going to get hit with the low fee. Now, another issue that I did run into as well is attaching my Wise card in Google Pay to Uber. I attached my Wise card to the Uber, also 99 card, which is another one here, and it worked for a while. And then like one day I used it in the morning. I came down here to the Starbucks when the Starbucks was here, and it worked fine. I left the Starbucks and we were going to go somewhere or whatever, and I went to pay, and it says that this card can't be used. Like, contact the card issuer or something like that. It was the second time this has happened to me, and I forgot all about it. It's like when I changed phones, I added it again, and it started working again, so I didn't think anything of it. But after a while, it stopped working. Now, I used Apple Pay when I got my iPhone, and I had Apple Pay. I added my Wise card there, and I've always been able to pay for Ubers. It's never stopped. So I would almost recommend like the iPhone in that situation, for paying for your Ubers or whatever, or, maybe if your bank card or whatever might be a better fit for Uber or something. Whatever reason, Google Pay will stop working. It's possible that it will stop working for you. And you don't want to be in a situation where you went somewhere or whatever, and then you go to use it and they're like, oh, you can't use your card anymore. So just one of the things that I ran into, I'm just letting you know that this happened to me. So, always have like a backup or a second plan for how you're going to do stuff or whatever. If you go somewhere or whatever and you're using Google Pay, have some cash or something with you, or a way to get cash, because, if you're using it over here, there's that chance and that opportunity that it will not work for you through Google Pay. But Apple Pay, I've never had an issue. And this not only happened to me with Uber, it also happened to me with 99 cars. So it's something about processing, through Google Pay that these companies don't like. And I guess after a while they catch on that you're doing it, they'll shut it off and they won't allow you to do it. So I don't know why, and I still never figured out why. And but I've been able to duplicate it because it happened on 2 different phones of mine that I had. Okay, so something else on my little list here is maintaining a local address in the US or your home country. I think it's important that you have an address. Maybe a P.O. box might work, but not every financial institution is going to take a P.O. box. So you probably want some type of street address that you can mail things to. That's going to be important. Say you need a replacement card. You may not want them to mail it here or something. Maybe you have a friend that's coming to Brazil, or you're going to your country where you're at. Maybe you have somebody who can actually mail it to you physically or whatever. So you want to maintain some type of physical address in the United States, because if you're setting up new accounts and things like that, they're looking for you to have an address in the United States. You can't give them your address overseas, right? So that's going to be something that you're going to want to maintain and set up as well. I happen to have an address that I can use in the United States if it's a friend or if it's an acquaintance or your family or something like that. Make sure that you have that when you're applying so you don't get stuck in a situation where they're like, oh, well, you're living over there, so we're not going to help you. That's going to be an important thing. And like replacement cards, I know with my Wise card, it's like I had to have it delivered. And then I got one, and it's like 6 months later, they're like, oh, everybody has to change their cards or something. And I ended up having to change a card again within like 6 months. So, they were like, oh, by July 1st or whatever, if you don't replace it, it's not going to be usable. So I got it replaced, and then I had to have it sent to me. So I used the address in the U.S. or whatever, had it sent there. My friend packaged it up in USPS and sent it to me. And I think that cost me about $40 US for him to actually mail the card to me. So it's going to be about $40 or whatever to have it delivered at least to here to Rio. So expect the cost to be up there a little bit when you do something like that. But it is good to maintain a U.S. address just in case of emergencies. You got to replace a card, or your card is stolen or lost or something. You want to be able to have access to get a new one. All right, so let's get back on the credit a little bit. So like I said, I had no credit history or whatever. I got the secured card through Capital One, who was graciously able to provide me that. I think Discover is another option too. They have one. I think you give them $200 or whatever. And after about 6 months, it graduates to an unsecured card. So you pay them for 6 months on time or whatever, and they'll graduate that to an unsecured card and give you your $200 back or put a statement credit or something like that. That's an option too. At the time, I was like, the Capital One is great. I'll spend the $100 or whatever. And but you don't get it back necessarily after 6 months. You don't necessarily just graduate out of that with Capital One. As far as I can tell so far, I just made like the 6th payment on it. So we're going to find that out. But I don't think that it graduates. From all the information I see, it doesn't really graduate to an unsecured card. So what I did just a couple of nights ago is I went back onto the website. I went through their pre-approval like process or whatever to see if you'd get approved. And I think it doesn't hit your credit until you actually, the inquiry doesn't hit your credit until you actually say, yes, I want this card. So I went through it. They did approve me for a Quicksilver One card or something like that. I was eligible for that, and then the Capital One Platinum. So there were 2 that I was eligible for, since I have this history with them now of 6 months at least. And so I chose one of them, and that card will be coming soon. I have it mailed to my address in the U.S., like I was saying, and then it'll be sent here because I have more things coming. So that should all come together. So what I'm saying is that you can use your time here in Brazil or in another country or whatever to start to build your credit profile back and keep it clean, right? You don't necessarily have to have a car, and you're not financing a car here. Don't have a mortgage here and all that kind of stuff. But you can have at least credit, on a credit card or whatever like that. That's helping you establish your credit. The great thing about that is you don't have to overextend yourself, right? You don't have to put yourself in a lot of debt in order to start building some type of credit profile. Now, I didn't have credit forever, so I didn't have a FICO score. It takes 6 months for you to get a FICO score. So I finally saw what my FICO 8 score is this morning because now I have 6 months of history, and it takes that 6 months. So you're going to get a Vantage score from like someone like NerdWallet or someone like Credit Karma or whatever is going to give you a Vantage score. I think it's a Vantage 4 score that you're going to get. So a lot of things are changing in the credit markets and how credit is being handled in 2025. So you might want to find some channels and try to figure out what's happening that's new there. I'm not going to try to explain it. I'm not a credit guru. I'm just saying this is the process that I'm going through and that I've gone through, and it might be helpful to you or somebody who's trying to rebuild their credit while they're overseas. So all in all, basically what I'm saying is that maintaining your finances is going to be extremely important. And it's something that you really have to consider before you move overseas. I know a lot of people kind of get the idea, and it's like they jump out overseas and they're living overseas, and then all of a sudden all of these things happen to them, and you got to navigate how to get a credit card, how to get your debit card replaced, how to, how to maintain your bank account, all that type of stuff. You don't want to have those struggles. You want to have that stuff kind of set up before you leave, and then have a plan for how you're going to replace cards and things if something gets stolen or something goes missing, or it's not working for whatever reason or whatever. You've got to be able to replace it. So have some type of, setup there. Having your phone number set up there in the United States, so how you're going to get your codes and all that type of thing. All of that stuff is very important. So, you just want to be able to, pay the bills, whatever you create for your credit. If you're creating a new credit card or whatever, they give you a nice high limit or whatever, maybe you've got credit established and all that kind of stuff, and you're not in my situation where I had nothing. You don't want to run it up and think, because there's people that think like, oh, I'm just going to run up a whole bunch of debt, or I'm going to get a bunch of loans or whatever. I'm going to go overseas and then they won't be able to find me. They won't be able to touch me. I'll just forget about the money or whatever like that. And I'll just use their money to live on. You don't really want to do that. I think, coming overseas is a great opportunity for you to actually build your credit and get you in a position where if you do go back to the US, you're in a situation where you can get a house, you can get an apartment, business credit, all of that stuff will be tied to your name in the beginning. So, you want to be able to use the opportunity the right way, right? So take the opportunity to, clean up your credit. Number one, like I said, if you can live on cash and you've got a way to live on cash and you got things falling off of your credit, and that's, as 7 years rolls around or whatever, let that stuff fall off your credit, while you're overseas or whatever. You're living anyway, you're doing your thing anyway, and then start with a clean slate, right? You can start with a clean slate, maybe get down to zero, not having any score, and then start to build again. It's going to give you an opportunity to kind of create what you want. So that's pretty much what I wanted to help you guys with here today. Hopefully that was some helpful information for you. If you have questions or whatever, and you want to talk to me, we do our consultations. So if you want to consult with me, you can do that. I do accept crypto as payment as well. So we've kind of got that figured out or whatever, and how I get paid, through crypto and all that kind of stuff is kind of cool. So if you want to do that, just contact me and let me know. Send me an email or a message. Go to the Instagram or through the or through my WhatsApp or whatever, if you have my WhatsApp. If you don't have that, hit me through YouTube or whatever. Just let me know, and then we'll get on some type of message or whatever. We'll chat. But hopefully I covered some good things for you here today. Things for you to think about as you get ready to move overseas, and things that will be pertinent to your move. So once again, it's the Big D, Brazil Living. Check out my other videos here. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.